දවස් 30ක්ම unlimited Netflix බලන්න. unlimited data pack එකක් මුළු පවුලටම unlimited fun එකක් අරගන්න. අදම active කරගන්න.
ලෙන්ගතුකම වැඩි කරගන්න ලව්ජු රුපියල් 50ට අඩු කළා.
මාමේ එන්න අපිට එකක් බොමු.
Tonight, not a community transmission. A fresh COVID-19 infection pops up from the community.
This is the first case that we are reporting from the community after 2 months of time.
This is a single incident only, but this kind of incident can happen anywhere in this country.
Early school holidays. A raft of measures taken by the government in the wake of the new COVID-19 infection. 20th Amendment. The Prime Minister accuses the opposition of unhesitatingly uttering every lie that comes to mind over Auditor General's powers. Not forsaking the trust. The President categorically rejects the notion of a government political deal with Rishad Badiuddin. All that and much more coming up on First at 9. This Sunday, the 4th of October 2020.
Nava Sunlight Sakura. Then Dikukal Pavatina Sakura Mal Suandin.
From AdaDerana, this is AdaDerana First at 9. Live from Studio 24 in Colombo.
Good evening and welcome to First at 9. I'm Dham Kekanaika. The focus of Sri Lanka is once more on COVID-19. More on that later. And before we get things going, President Gotabaya Rajapaksa today categorically rejected the rumours that the government has entered into what he called a political deal with former Minister Rishad Badiuddin. The statement comes at the heels of Badiuddin's brother, who faced various allegations of aiding and abetting the Easter Sunday attackers, being released by the CID on the grounds of insufficient evidence to prove the allegations against the suspect. In a Facebook post, the head of state insisted that he is not prepared to hand over the power of arresting or arbitrarily releasing people to politicians, as happened in the past. Taking to Facebook, President Gotabaya Rajapaksa said today that ensuring national security is the first and foremost responsibility of his government. He went on to say, quote, I am not prepared to hand over the power of arresting or arbitrarily releasing people to politicians, as happened in the past. I will also take actions to rectify any omissions or mistakes made by the relevant authorities or officials. I emphasise that our government has not entered into any political deal with parliamentarian Rishad Badiuddin. I assure my citizens that I will not forsake the trust that they have placed in me, and I will most certainly continue to work towards strengthening the built trust." Unquote. Meanwhile, the Deputy Inspector General of Police, who was in charge of the Criminal Investigation Department, was transferred today, with a new DIG appointed in his place. What's more, people in the area of Katuapitiya in Negombo staged a protest remonstrating their displeasure over former Minister Rishad Badiuddin's brother being set free by the Criminal Investigation Department.
A protest was worked off by the locals in the area of Katuapitiya against the release of former Minister Rishad Badiuddin's brother, Riyaj Badiuddin. It was held in front of the St. Sebastian's Church in Katuapitiya, which came under the terrorist attack on the Easter Sunday of last year.
පොලිස් අධිකාරිතුමා කතා කරනවා මෙයා ඍජුව බෝම්බකරුවන් එක්ක කතා බහ කරලා තියෙනවා එහෙම කියද්දි නැවත ආපහු කියනවා පැබලවත් සාක්ෂි නැහැ එයාට දඬුවම් කරන්න කියලා. ඇයි මෙහෙම උත්තර දෙන්නේ?
නඩුව කරේ බොහෝ විශ්වාසයක් තිබ්බා. ඒ කියපු දේවල් දැන් බොරු වෙලා තියෙනවා. ඒ අපි කලකිරලා ඉන්නේ.
මගේ පුතයි මගේ දුවයි නැති හින්දා මම තනි වෙලා ඉන්නේ. මේකට සාධාරණයක් ඉෂ්ට කරන්න මේ මැරිච්ච අය වෙනුවෙන්.
කිසිම ආණ්ඩුවකින් කිසිම පැත්තකින් අපි දිහා කවුරුත් බැලුවේ නැහැ. අවුරුදු එකමාරක් වහුණා තාමත් මේක ඇත්ත දැක්කේ නැහැ. අපි මෙච්චර නිස්සද්ද වෙලා ඉන්නේ. අපේ කාදිනල්තුමා හින්දා ගරු ජනාධිපතිතුමාගෙනුත් සෑම කෙනෙකුම ඉල්ලන්නේ මේකට සාධාරණයක් ඉෂ්ට කරලා මේකේ වැරදිකාරයන්ම නීතියට ගෙන්නලා අපිට පෙන්눔 කරන්න කියලා තමයි මේ ඉල්ලන්නේ.
Former Minister Rishad Badiuddin's brother, Riyaj Badiuddin, was released without even being produced before court while he was in the custody of the Criminal Investigation Department under detention orders. With that being the case, Deputy Inspector General of Police in charge of the CID, Nuwan Vedarsinghe, was transferred as the acting DIG in charge of the Western Province. As such, DIG SP Ranasinghe has been appointed as the new DIG in charge of the CID.
Enjoy a very smooth shave with the Bic Easy 2 razor. Bic Easy 2.
Now, as I said before, the focus of Sri Lanka once more falls on COVID-19, as a sporadic infection was confirmed from the community after enjoying around 2 months of bliss. The confirmed case has led to police curfew being imposed in the areas of Diulapitiya, Veyangoda and Minuwangoda, while authorities hurry to identify the source of the fresh infection. The epidemiology unit, however, reassures the public that all necessary measures are taken to prevent the further spread of the virus within the community.
A 39-year-old woman residing in the area of Bomugammana in Horagasmulla of Diulapitiya was admitted to the District General Hospital in Gampaha on the 30th of September with fever. However, following her recovery from the fever, the woman tested positive for COVID-19 yesterday after she was subjected to a PCR test at the hospital. She was then transferred to the Infectious Diseases Hospital in Angoda immediately last night. Consultant physician at the National Institute of Infectious Diseases Hospital, Dr. Ananda Vikrama, said that after the woman was admitted to the hospital, she was subjected to a second PCR test and that result too was positive. The woman was identified as an employee of the Brandix garment factory in Minuwangoda. Her spouse is a three-wheeler driver. Consequently, 6 members, including the woman's family members and 2 other close relatives, were directed to the Army Quarantine Centre in Habaraduwa, and they were also subjected to PCR tests. Persons from 10 houses from the area of Diulapitiya too have been directed for quarantine. In the meantime, Army Commander Lieutenant General Shavindra Silva stated that the 16-year-old daughter of the COVID-19 infected woman has also tested positive for the virus. She was confirmed in the afternoon after the daughter was subjected to a PCR test at the quarantine centre in Habaraduwa. Meanwhile, the Government Information Department stated that 45 staff members of the garment factory who had taken the office transport with the COVID-19 employee and 15 of the staff of the Gampaha hospital who had come into contact with her have been directed to undergo self-quarantine. As of now, a total of 400 associates of the woman have been identified, with a majority of them being employees of the garment factory. As a result, health authorities have taken steps to direct those who have been identified as associates of the COVID-19 infected woman for either self-quarantine or to quarantine facilities, depending on their proximity to the infected garment factory employee. Meanwhile, the Government Information Department said in a statement this afternoon that the Acting Director General of Health Services, Dr. S. Sidharan, has instructed all residents of Gampaha to immediately go to the nearest hospital and undergo a PCR examination if they have fever. In the meantime, the Minister of Health, Pavitra Vanniyarachi, and Army Commander Lieutenant General Shavindra Silva held a media briefing today at the National Operations Centre for Prevention of COVID-19.
මේ රෝගියා අපිට හොයාගන්න පුළුවන් උනේ අපි ප්‍රධාන රෝහල් වලට උපදෙස් දීලා තියෙනවා සෑම දවසකම 10 දෙනෙක්ගේ PCR පරීක්ෂණය කිරීම සඳහා අවශ්‍ය ස්වබ් ගන්න කියලා. ඉතින් ඒ අනුව ලබාගත්ත නියදියක හම්බෙන් තමයි අපට ඒ නියදියේ වාර්තා වෙනකොට ඒ රෝගියාට ඒ රෝගය තියෙන බව තහවුරු වුණා. ඒ වගේම එයා අපි නැවත තුම්පොලකින් පරීක්ෂා කරලා තමයි මේ තැනැත්තියට COVID-19 රෝගය තියෙන බව අපිට තහවුරු කරගන්නට පුළුවන් වුණේ.
විශේෂයෙන්ම මේ කාන්තාව සුපර්වයිසර් කෙනෙක් හැටියට ඇඟලුම් කර්මාන්ත ශාලාවේ සේවය කරනු ලබන්නේ. ඒ සේවය කරන ළඟම ඒ කාන්තාව වැඩ කරන ගොඩනැගිල්ලේ සිටපු සියලුම අයවලුනුත් ඒත් එක්කම ඇය හා සමීපව විශේෂයෙන්ම ගමන් කරපු එයා පෞද්ගලික ආයතනයට අයත් බස් රථයක පමණයි ගමන් කරලා තිබෙන නිවස දක්වා ඒ බස් රථයේ ගමන් කරපු අයලුත් සියලු දෙනාමත් ඊයේ රාත්‍රියේම අපි නිරෝධායනයට යොමු කරනු ලැබුවා නිවෙස්වල. ඊට අමතරව ඒ හා සම්බන්ධ වුණු ඇය හා පසුගිය දින කිහිපෙදීම හමුණු සියලුම අයවලුනුත් මේ ආකාරයෙන් නිවෙස්වල නිරෝධායන කිරීමට ඊයේ රාත්‍රියේම ක්‍රියා කරනු ලැබුවා. විශේෂයෙන්ම මෙහිදී කිව යුත්තේ ශ්‍රී ලංකා වාසී ජනතාව අතර මේ ප්‍රදේශවලට පසුගිය දින කිහිපෙදී ගමන් කරපු අයවලුන්ටත් ඉතාමත් පරිස්සම් විය යුතුව තිබෙනවා. අපි දන්නේ මේකේ මූලාශ්‍රය මේ කියන පැය වෙනකොට මූලාශ්‍රය මේකයි කියලා සොයා ගැනීමට අපිට හැකියාවක් ලැබිලා නැහැ. නමුත් අපි සොයමින් සිටිනවා.
Director of the Medical Research Institute, Dr. Jairuwan Bandara, meanwhile urged the public to not panic in the face of the new infection.
This is a single incident only, but this kind of incident can happen anywhere in this country. It can happen at any point, any place. So it's very dangerous. If you are trying to panic and go to several shops at a short time and trying to get the things gather for your day-to-day home needs, it's very dangerous. So be safe at home until we find out all the contacts and make the environment safe for you.
This is the first case that we are reporting from the community after 2 months of time. We have identified all the contacts of this patient and we are quarantining them and doing the PCR testing, and also we will be arranging community PCR testing in future, and we have taken all the measures to not to spread this disease beyond this level. What you have to do is that this is the real situation in the COVID-19. This is a virus disease. At any time that these cases can appear from the community, because sometimes these cases can be missed or leaked into the society.
Accordingly, the Brandix garment factory announced through a statement that they would render their fullest support to the public health inspectors in order to identify close contacts of the COVID-19 infected woman. Meanwhile, a curfew is imposed in the police areas of Diulapitiya, Minuwangoda and Veyangoda.
Now, after the sudden confirmation of a new COVID-19 infection within the country, several precautionary measures were taken by state authorities. They include the start of the school holidays for the second term being brought forward to tomorrow. Furthermore, tuition classes in the Colombo district will not be permitted until further notice, while all international and private schools will also be closed from tomorrow. Now, here's a roundup of all the added measures taken to mitigate the possible spread of the coronavirus.
Following the identification of a fresh case of COVID-19 in Diulapitiya, state authorities took several decisions as precautionary measures to contain its spread. With that being the case, the Ministry of Education decided to conclude the second term of schools and commence its holidays from tomorrow. This move comes in the backdrop where the school vacation is set to commence on Friday the 9th. Furthermore, the second term holidays for Pirivenas and Sila Mata institutions will also commence tomorrow. What's more, the State Ministry of Women and Child Development, Preschools and Primary Education stated that all preschools in the country too are directed to be closed for holidays from tomorrow. Following this fresh case of COVID-19, steps were also taken to close the University of Kalaniya, with the University Grants Commission requesting its students to vacate the hostels with immediate effect. Also, the Vikramarache Ayurvedic Institute in Yakkala and the Advanced Technological Institute in Naivala will also be closed for a week from tomorrow. In another development, tuition classes in the Gampaha district have also been instructed to close from tomorrow. In the meantime, the Secretary to the Ministry of Public Services, Provincial Councils and Local Government, J.J. Ratnasiri, announced that the public day, which was scheduled to be held at government offices tomorrow, will not be held this week, and a new date for the next week will be announced later. Meanwhile, Commander of the Sri Lanka Army, Lieutenant General Shavendra Silva, said that Tri-Forces and Civil Defence Force personnel in the areas of Diulapitiya and Minuwangoda are requested not to report for duty until further notice. The Commissioner General of Prisons, Tushar Uppuleniya, meanwhile stated that the visitations at the Mahara and Nigambu prisons have been temporarily halted with immediate effect. In the meantime, the opportunity given for 5 persons to accompany an air traveller to the departure terminal of the airport is once more restricted from today. Accordingly, Chairman of the Airport and Aviation Services Limited, retired Major General G.A. Chandrasiri, stated that only passengers arriving for departures can enter the airport premises. Furthermore, the opportunity given to the people who completed the quarantine process after arriving Sri Lanka during the pandemic to purchase goods from duty-free shops at the airport premises was halted from this afternoon. With this sudden COVID-19 infection, police once again took steps to remind the people the importance of adhering to health and safety protocols. What's more, health authorities urged public to adhere to safety protocols as it was adhered by the people during the beginning of the pandemic.
To prevent spread of the disease, all the people that should adhere to the health guidelines. The first thing is that they should not come into the society unnecessarily, should be stay at home as much as possible, and when they come into the society should wear a mask properly and also should maintain the physical distance 1 meter and also should wash their hands with soap and water frequently. If they are adhering to these guidelines, we will be able to control this type of COVID-19 outbreaks and our society will be safe.
වහාම ක්‍රියාත්මක වන පරිදි මිනුවන්ගොඩ සහ දිවුලපිටිය පොලිස් බල ප්‍රදේශවල ආවරණය වන පරිදි නිරෝධායන ඇදිරි නීතිය ක්‍රියාත්මක කරනු ලබනවා. එය නැවත දැනුම් දෙනතුරු ක්‍රියාත්මක වෙනවා. ඒ නිසා විශේෂයෙන්ම ජනතාවගෙන් ඉල්ලා සිටිනවා මේ ප්‍රදේශවල එම ඇදිරි නීතියට අවනත වෙමින් කටයුතු කරන ලෙසට. ඒ වගේම මෙම ඇදිරි නීතිය බලපැවැත්වෙන කාලය තුල පෙර පරිදිම කිසියෙකුට ඒ ප්‍රදේශවලින් තමන් ඉන්න නිවාසවලින් පිටතට පැමිණීමට හැකියාව ලැබෙන්නේ නැහැ. ඒ වගේම වෛද්‍ය සේවා සෞඛ්‍ය සේවා අත්‍යවශ්‍ය කටයුතු පමණක් අත්‍යවශ්‍ය සේවා පමණක් ඒ පොලිස් බල ප්‍රදේශවල ක්‍රියාත්මක වෙනවා.
We will see you shortly after this break. Stay tuned.
I'm much better
Welcome back. You're watching First at 9. Now, Prime Minister Main Therajputs claims that the opposition has been trying to propagate the idea that the Auditor General's powers would be reduced by the proposed 20th Amendment to the Constitution. Offering clarity on the matter via a communique today, the Prime Minister criticised the opposition for, as he termed, unhesitantly uttering every lie that comes to mind with regard to this matter because of the confidence that most people would not be familiar with these obscure provisions of the Constitution. In his communique, Prime Minister Main Therajputs says one of the false claims being made is that the 19th Amendment set up an audit commission and that the 20th Amendment seeks to abolish it. He says, quote, "What the 19th Amendment made provisions for was not an audit commission, but only an audit service commission. The Audit Service Commission does not carry out any auditing functions. All that the creation of the Audit Service Commission achieved was to set up yet another commission to do the work that was being done by the Public Service Commission." Another false claim being made by the opposition is that the 20th Amendment seeks to remove the Presidential Secretariat and the Office of the Prime Minister from the purview of the Auditor General. From the very inception of the 1978 Constitution, the Presidential Secretariat and the Prime Minister's Office have been under the purview of the Auditor General. These institutions were always listed as government departments in the government financial regulations. The inclusion of the Presidential Secretariat and the Office of the Prime Minister by name in Article 154 subsection 1 by the 19th Amendment did not achieve anything new. Even after the 20th Amendment reinstates the old Article 154 subsection 1 which existed from the inception of the 1978 Constitution in place of the so-called changes made by the 19th Amendment, the Presidential Secretariat and the Prime Minister's Office will continue to remain within the purview of the Auditor General. Another falsehood that's being propagated is that state-owned companies will be removed from the purview of the Auditor General by the 20th Amendment. The auditing of state corporations and state-owned companies, i.e. companies in which the state owns more than 50% of the shares, comes under Article 154 subsection 2 of the Constitution. The content of Article 154 subsection 2, which existed from the inception of the 1978 Constitution, was not changed by the 19th Amendment. The content of Article 154 subsection 2 will not change under the 20th Amendment either. Hence, the claim that state-owned companies are to be taken out of the purview of the Auditor General is a complete falsehood. It is also being claimed by opposition propagandists that the 19th Amendment had stipulated that the Auditor General should be a qualified auditor and that when the 20th Amendment reinstates the old pre-19th Amendment Article 153 subsection 1, this qualification requirement will be dropped and hence, after the 20th Amendment is passed, even an unqualified person can be appointed as Auditor General. Constitutions are written on the assumption that those reading it will have basic common sense. The Constitution does not state anywhere that the person appointed as Attorney General or as a Supreme Court judge has to be a qualified lawyer. But those appointed as Attorney General, Auditor General or a Supreme Court judge will always have the required educational and professional qualifications without which they cannot function in those positions. All that the 20th Amendment seeks to do is to replace the changes made to the provisions relating to the Auditor General by the 19th Amendment with the provisions that existed before the 19th Amendment. The opposition has been unhesitatingly uttering every lie that comes to mind with regard to this matter because of the confidence that most people would not be familiar with those obscure provisions of the Constitution. Unquote. Moving on with other local stories, a close contact of recently slain criminal Ratmalane Roha was arrested with 3 other suspects by the police special task force. Meanwhile, the police have uncovered a drug racket which is operated in the area of Nillemba in Galaha. Now here's the latest on Sri Lanka's war on drugs and the underworld.
The police special task force mobilized following a tip-off last evening and conducted a raid in the area of Ratmalana. During the operation, they found 260 rounds of live ammunition while being buried in the area of Devatapara, which included 255 rounds of ammunition used in T-56 firearms, 4 9mm rounds and 3 8mm rounds. The STF personnel also apprehended 4 suspects, including one identified as Guna Kovilasudda. The suspects are close contacts of the late criminal gang member Ratmalane Roha, who died during a shootout with the police recently. All 4 suspects are from the area of Moratuwa and are between the ages 28 and 44. Primarily, investigations have revealed that the suspects had been at a party held at Nuwara Eliya with late Roha. The 4 suspects were handed over to the Mount Lavinia police for further investigation. Meanwhile, Moratuwa police found close to a kilogram of Kerala cannabis from a handbag of a woman from the area of Katubedda. The arrest was made upon information uncovered from a suspect arrested recently during a raid conducted by the Moratuwa police crime branch. The suspect's mobile phone and 134,000 rupees obtained by drug peddling were seized by the police. It has been revealed that the suspect had peddled drugs in the area of Vaduwa, Kaluthura, Aludgama and Beruwala. She had rented a house in Vaduwa and used rented vehicles in her drug operations. In another development, the police STF raided an illicit liquor distillery yesterday that was conducted inside a house in Katana. 2 suspects were arrested during the raid, and it has been revealed that the house used in the illicit liquor distilling was obtained on rental basis. In the meantime, 11 more suspects were arrested last night from Mathidiya with 100 grams of Kerala cannabis and 2 grams of heroin in their possession. In Galaha, police have uncovered a drug racket worked off in the area of Nilamba. A raid was conducted in the area of Nilamba yesterday with the use of an undercover operative. Information on a drug racket operated over a considerable period of time was uncovered with the arrest of a suspect during the raid who was in possession of 1.38 grams of heroin. In a separate development, a couple was arrested from the area of Talapitiya in Gaul with 10.3 grams of heroin. The arrest was made by the Gaul Police Anti-Corruption Unit this afternoon.
We will see you once more on the other side of this break. Bear with us. Welcome back. You're watching First at 9. Now, the Sri Lankan Tea Board has launched an initiative to promote the Ceylon tea brand with the use of tea-dyed face masks. The Tea Board says that the face masks will be distributed among the business community worldwide on complimentary basis, adding that arrangements have been made to dispatch Ceylon tea branded face masks to over 75 Sri Lankan missions around the world. Dyed with the use of Ceylon tea dye, which is a byproduct of iced tea manufacturing, the Ceylon tea branded masks can be washed and reused up to 30 times. They are also natural antimicrobial, biodegradable, eco-friendly and non-toxic. Positive momentum is expected at the Colombo Bourse in the week coming ahead with heavy buying interest. Sri Lankan shares snapped 2 sessions of losing to end higher last Friday, helped by consumer and industrial stocks. Now let's take a look at what we can expect in the market during the week ahead.
Looking at the upcoming week, we expect that positive momentum that came from the repayment of the sovereign to be brought forward to the current week as well. With that positive momentum, we feel that buying interest will continue in the equity market with retailers buying more into the equity index. Also, another thing that is important to highlight is the finance company FD ceiling dipped to 6.88%, which is the second reason why there would be more funds flowing in towards the equity market, which is a major positive towards the equity investments. So considering that this is one of the alternative investment options, we feel that there will be a significant amount of money that would come into the equity markets, and with that the positive momentum that is there in the market is likely to continue. However, we feel a change in trend. All this time we've seen some mid-cap counters moving. However, now with blue chips being significantly undervalued, we believe that there could be a bit of a change in trend where investors may move towards blue chip counters as we go on.
And that's it from all of us here at First at 9. Thanks for watching. Bye-bye.